Okay, welcome to First Draft. It is the first Tuesday in August, and we are coming to you right after RWA. So hopefully all of you romance authors are well rested, and everybody else enjoy the fact that you don't have the post-RWA plague that some of us seem to have caught, myself included. So I'm Julia Kelly, and I am with Alexis Ann and Mary Chris Escobar. And Alexis, if you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're talking to us today.
Hello, I'm Alexis Ann. I write contemporary and erotic romance. You can find me at alexisannbooks.com, and I had a great time at RWA with my friends. I got to see you guys in person.
Mary Chris, how about you?
My name is Mary Chris Escobar. I write women's fiction. I can be found online at marychrisescobar.com. Also, super excited to have seen you guys both in person and be roomies with you at RWA. Super fun. And I am actually coming to you all. I'm sort of still traveling, and I'm in North Carolina on vacation at a beach house. So if I drop out, it's because the internet is a little bit spotty here. That's also why you see a slightly different background. My background also might change because I'm sort of trying to move the computer to find the best internet signal. It seems to depend on how many other people in this group of townhouses are on the internet. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that no one is streaming a movie next door, and I'll make it through the whole chat.
Yes, this is our grand plan. So hopefully we will not have another incident like last time where we lost for Alexis to a storm. But yeah, so we were going to talk a little bit about wrapping up RWA, and we did a couple of broadcasts about preparing for RWA, and this was our second year for all of us as opposed to last year when we were newbies. So hopefully we didn't feel quite as green and got some stuff out of it. So who feels like starting out? Kind of big highlights, other than the fact that we ruined a bed at RWA, but that's, you know.
We should totally talk about the bed.
So we have to tell that story now that you said that.
Yeah, all right, let's take this one.
Well, I'll tell it. So my very, very sweet husband sent us a bottle of wine to our hotel room. We were on vacation prior to the start of RWA, and so he was there and he left, but he sent a bottle of wine to our room. Of course, we went out to dinner and then hung out at the bar with some friends and weren't back in our room for probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours from the time that he ordered this. And it arrived on a tray that was not closed on the edges, and so of course it was in a bucket of, it was white wine in a bucket of ice, and the ice all melted and seeped out of the little corners of the tray and wet our bed all the way through to the mattress pad. So we needed a complete bed change on night one at RWA. We had to call housekeeping and say, we've had an incident with a bottle of wine, and we're going to need everything changed, not just the comforter and the sheets. So super, super romantic thing, and we had a bottle of wine from my husband to send us the wine, and we had that bottle of wine to drink while we waited on housekeeping. So
It actually worked out perfectly.
Yeah, it did.
Except for the poor person in housekeeping, but
I know. She was very sweet. The staff at the hotel was just amazing all around. So
agreed.
Yes.
So other than wine incidents, Lexi, what were some of the highlights for you this year?
This year, for me, it was about people more than anything else. Getting to see the people that I've met online in person for the first time, or getting a chance to go to workshops and see these, huge people, either being authors or people who run different platforms, and being able to put a face with a name, and in some cases being able to go up and shake hands and talk with them. So for me, the big highlights were after evenings in the bar, talking to people, networking, because that leads to networking and stories and connections and lifelong friendships. There are people who I barely knew before RWA, and now I want to know everything about them. I want to read all their books. I want to help them out, do their Facebook parties like I did today for Tina.
And you had your first signing.
I did? Oh, yeah, things like that.
Yeah, whatevs. No big thing.
I had my first book signing. I kept my name. Which was so much fun because you all came and supported me, and it was a big scary thing, and I signed all my books. They all disappeared within like 20 minutes, and It was crazy.
How about you, Mary Chris? Big highlights from RWA?
Yeah, I think it was very much the same thing as Alexis just said. Definitely a different feel going in the second year. I mean, the first year was sort of all about figuring out what is this thing that I'm doing, trying to get as much business insight. I felt a lot of pressure to go to a panel or go to one of the workshops like in every session. I definitely didn't feel that this time. I went through before the conference and started the ones that I felt like were must go. But then if something cool was going on and I had a chance to go to a signing or network with somebody during one of the other ones, I just kind of let those go. So it's definitely more about the people, definitely more about learning about the different platforms that I publish on. I thought that was one of the more interesting things that I did a tiny bit of last year, but I really focused on that, kind of once I realized that could be helpful, really getting to know the Kobo system, the Barnes & Noble system, the Apple system. That was just invaluable to have people there. I also moderated a panel this year, which was super fun. It was a 2-hour panel on copyright law, which was just fabulous, and the speaker I had seen last year, and I got a chance to talk to him about his kids going off to college, and it was just fun. It was fun to be able to network on that level with folks.
Nice. I think other than what both of you mentioned already, the people and the networking and getting to learn more and doing some moderating, the coolest thing was people kept walking up to us and saying, I love your little broadcast thing, which is a very weird experience because I work with people who are on television all the time and they tell me that this happens. It doesn't happen to me usually, so it was very cool. So thank you very much if you watch and you mentioned it. We're huge dorks about it. If we seemed at all cool when you were being very nice to us, we're not, because we immediately pulled out our cell phones and started text messaging each other, being like, "You're never gonna believe what just happened." So thank you very much. Something else with that, actually, if people are watching live and want to ask questions, we always are happy to take questions from people. So we would love to chat with you, either through this question and answer panel if you're watching live, or through Twitter and Facebook if you are watching back in YouTube. So I think one of the big things that we all took away from a lot of the workshops and a lot of just being at RWA in general was the big overarching question about how you protect your writing time. We've talked a little bit before about how you make time to write and how you carve out and prioritize that, but it's a little bit different, kind of taking that time and then making sure that you're staying true to that. So we wanted to focus a little bit more on saying no and telling our stories about how we make sure that we get those either pages done or edits done or whatever it is that needs to be prioritized. So we're winging it a little bit tonight and being a little bit more free-flowing than usual. Usually there's a little bit of an agenda, but yeah, we're just going to open it up for a conversation. So what were you hearing out of panels with people being concerned about writing time and some of the advice that you were getting?
I think Nora Roberts is the gold standard. That you have to write, you have to write, you have to write. If you don't have anything on the page, there's nothing to edit, there's nothing to do. And so that's kind of where I feel like everything always trickles down from, because she's Nora Roberts, and we all just kind of follow her. True.
I was in that chat this year, and I've actually made the back of my computer wallpaper her quote, and I think it was, stop whining and write, stop fucking around and write, stop making excuses. So that seemed pretty accurate.
She's so frank about stuff. Just do it. And if you can't do something, you should be just as frank. I can't do this right now, which is really hard to do when you're trying to make a name for yourself and you're trying to hit a bestseller list and stuff like that. You want to say yes to everything. But if you say yes to everything, then you can't write, which is the most important thing to be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think one thing, I went to a panel that Bella Andre was on. I think you might have been in the same panel, Alexis. But, she was talking about not getting too worried in kind of whatever the next big trend is. The news about Amazon's digital lending had just come out, right before RWA. And to show you how uninvolved I am with that, I'm forgetting what it's called. So if you remember, thank you, Kindle Unlimited. But instead of kind of jumping on all of these news stories immediately and feeling totally overwhelmed by that, what she was saying she always comes back to is write the next book. And that's something that really stuck out for me is, there's not much that we can do to control what's going on in the publishing world, for better or worse. And a lot of times those things have to kind of settle down and shake out before we know what it's all going to look like. And really our focus should be writing the next book and writing it well. And so that really stuck out to me because it's short and sweet. Just, if you're feeling overwhelmed with all the other stuff, write the next book, because that's your job as a writer. There's nothing to market if you haven't written it. So.
No, very true. Yeah. I think in terms of getting down and writing that next book, I know one of the things that a lot of people run into is you have the time, you carved out the time, but then you're a writer, and so not everybody understands that is a job. Just like I go to my day job for 9 hours a day, I come home and I write for a certain amount of time, and I try to be very protective of that time. And if I'm going to make accommodations for people, you have to make up the time at some point, otherwise you're going to get behind. So kind of what areas, I know one of the areas that people flagged, unfortunately, as a major problem area is family. And how do you balance, especially when you have kids, or when you do have a spouse, or even when you have, family living nearby, how you balance saying no to them and also being involved in their lives. What do you guys think?
I don't know that there's a good answer to that. To start with what you kind of launched off with, which is people not understanding what that time means, because they're not writers and they don't understand that a lot of what we're doing now doesn't pay off immediately. So it isn't, and I worked for 2 hours, I earned $20. I worked for 50 hours, I earned $5,000 kind of equation there. I'm doing all this work, and a lot of it's unpaid at this point, but it's building a career that is going to last me for years and years and years, and some of that is going to, I keep hearing dinging in my ear because you're adjusting my audio.
I'm adjusting your volume. Sorry about that. Very, very soft today.
Sorry about that. So it's hard to explain to other people sometimes that this isn't a hobby. Even when you are making money, it still seems like it's a hobby to people, because you don't always you don't go to an office. You don't clock those hours. That you're a self-contained thing. So explaining having the right people in your circle so that they understand that this is a job, whether it's paying or not, so that they understand when you say I'm writing, that means you're working, is a really important thing to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I think the family question is really hard. I agree. That's really difficult to answer. I actually do try to keep that as a pretty big priority. As far as time with family, or if I need to go visit a family. My husband's family is very close, about an hour away, and my family is about 2 hours away. So in some ways, they're not right down the street. So there's, that it is usually a planned thing if we're going to go see family. However, obviously I'm going to always take the call from my mom. Like, I'm not going to, let that impact my writing time. So I think I kind of hold a pretty high priority with that. But on the flip side, my husband is probably one of my biggest allies. He is the one who will say, when I am not writing, aren't you supposed to be writing right now? So I think, as much as maybe you can have a drain on your time, also those people who are the closest to you and living in the household with you can be the ones to say, are you really watching that YouTube video? Because I thought this was your writing time. So I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be helpful. Yeah. I know I usually get a text message or a GChat alert or something like that from Alexis every couple of days being like, so how's it going? How's the writing going? And I'm just like, right. No, I think that in terms of laying out the groundwork for people, I don't have kids and I don't have a spouse, but I have some wonderful friends, and I have a wonderful sister who lives very close to me, literally 4 blocks away from me. And it's difficult to learn that you can't always be available. And there are times, for instance, this weekend where I barely left my apartment, and I actually did end up spontaneously going in and walking with my sister because I literally on Sunday night was about to climb the walls. But no, you do. You have to be very aggressive about saying no, and you can explain it, and hopefully people understand and are receptive to the fact that you're doing this and you're doing this seriously. Even as an unpublished author, in a way, it's an even crazier upfront investment of time because you're just sitting there and you have no backlist, no guarantee that any money is going to come in, no guarantee that anybody's going to publish anything unless you self-publish, and you know that's a whole other world of promotion and marketing and having to put yourself out there. So to lay that groundwork and to really have people around you who, once you've said no, this is a job, this is something that I do, and I'm doing it professionally. I'm not getting paid for it. Once they understand that and being able to say, okay, remember how I told you how this is a job, this is what that means now. I'm going to have to do some things like work weekends. I'm going to have to do some things like work late at night or work, you know, when most people would be on holiday, or watching TV and watching Orange is the New Black, which is one of the things that I have yet to watch. And it doesn't mean that you have to suck all the joy out of life, and you shouldn't. You should have as much, you need some time where you're being sane with the people in your lives, but you do need to make sure that you maintain those barriers by saying no. No is really hard.
Well, we can come to RWA next year a week early, like we talked about, and then we'll all get into your bed with you together since we're rubies, and that's cold, right? And we'll wear our pajamas, and we'll pop popcorn, and we'll watch all of Orange is the New Black all at once, and then we'll be all caught up.
Hey, that sounds great to me. I mean, why not, right? You could. RWA is in New York City next year, so they're going to be in this tiny studio apartment with me apparently for a week. They're going to want to kill me by the end of it.
Oh yeah, we are doing that, right?
No, that's not happening. We'll have to enter into negotiations.
I do find that I binge more with my free time now that I am a full-time writer, and so I won't watch any TV. And then I'll sit there for like 2 days and just watch a ridiculous amount of TV and get all caught up in everything. Or I'll sit there and I'll read through an entire stack of books in a week because it's my week to read. So I've become a binger.
Yeah, because you need to protect your sanity, and you need to make sure that you're doing things. You're supposed to read. You're a writer. You're supposed to read things, and you're supposed to read things that are not your friends' books too. I know I fall into the habit of doing a lot of just reading my friends' work, and it's great, and I love reading my friends' stuff, but also, it's important to do other things from time to time. So you have to protect your own mental health as well as protecting your time. So, Lexi, you want to describe the blood and fire rule?
I was like, I should really get back to the family questions since I'm the one with the kids.
I know it is one of the bigger questions that a lot of people have. Maybe you can explain blood and fire and how that works.
It is probably my favorite piece of advice that I got out of RWA last year, and I'm so glad that Nora Roberts comes back so often and gives the same amazing information to people. And she has this thing called the blood and fire rule. And if you have kids in particular, this is a fantastic rule because it gives you a very clear delineation of what kids really need. Because as parents, you want to give your kids everything. And when they're little in particular, it's, oh, you need a milk. Okay, I'll stop writing. I'll get you a milk. Oh, you need a new Dora the Explorer. Okay, I'll get you Dora the Explorer. And you don't protect your writing time. So the blood and fire rule is, mommy's working. You do not interrupt mommy unless there is blood or there is fire, because otherwise you're a human being. You can take care of yourself, and kids do need that. We've kind of forgotten that a little bit. I think that kids can take care of themselves and they don't need mommy helicoptering over them all the time. So Nora Roberts rule, blood and fire. If there's blood or there's fire, you come get me. I will take care of it. Otherwise, I'm working.
It's a brilliant rule, and I think it probably should apply to all other aspects of our lives too.
I love that rule. It's fantastic.
So how do you guys deal with people who don't understand that writing is not a hobby?
You cut them. You cut them out of your life.
Oh my God.
No, you don't. You don't actually cut them. You don't cut them out of your life, but you do. I think everybody has circles in their world. The tightest circle around you are the people who you trust the most, and then your circles get bigger from there with people that you don't necessarily trust as much. And if people don't protect your writing time, if they don't understand that this is your career, they kind of have to move a little bit further out into your circles where you don't necessarily give them as much of your time because they're not understanding what's special and sacred about your time.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I think sometimes it's an education thing. Like I think so many people write as a hobby or want to write as a hobby that, if you just say I write and they know that you have another job or other things that you're doing, the assumption is that it's a hobby. And so, I think sometimes it's just saying, no, like I actually, like it's my second job is usually how I describe it. I just, I kind of put it in those work terms and say, no, it's, my second job. It's what I do. And I had somebody recently say, oh, so you write as a hobby. And it wasn't meant in a harmful way. It was just a clarification. And it allowed me to say, no, it's my second job. And then that becomes, I think, more clear. But I do agree that, you will always have those circles of people who just aren't, maybe going to understand that this is something that you're taking seriously. And so you find yourself kind of talking a little bit less about that part of your life, maybe kind of just sharing the big news, not the day-to-day, not the I wrote for 6 hours today, but the, hey, my book is coming out, and you just kind of, I like the circle analogy. That's a really nice way to describe it.
Yeah, I agree. There are a lot of people who, not actually sitting down and doing it, I think it's very difficult to imagine what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis. And I think one of the biggest challenges is making people understand that, and also accepting the fact that a lot of people just aren't going to understand. And I love my friends who are not writers. I really do. They're wonderful people. But I realized, first of all, I was probably boring them. It's a very solitary thing, and unless you actually sit down and do it, and unless you really have those moments of being like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do this because this is my job. Just the same way that I would go to my day job and say, really don't feel like doing this right now, but you know what, I have to do it because this is what I'm here for, and this is what this time is allotted. I've allotted to do this thing. I think one of the big moments for me was also starting to put it in work terms. And I used to say, oh, I'm writing, and people really wouldn't get it. They assumed that it was something you pick up and put down. And I think a lot of people need to be told, first of all, it's like exercise. If you get out of the habit of it, it's all the more difficult to get back into it, which is a thing that I didn't believe before I started doing writing consistently. And then I think also, starting to say, so I come home from work and then I work, and explaining to people that you do have two jobs and you have two careers, and if any, to some level you have to almost dedicate more concentrated time to this one job of writing if you also have a day job, because you have a concentrated amount of time, and that time really is very, very valuable. So I think that really helped when I started to call it work. And it's actually gotten to the point where my family was getting confused about which work I was talking about. So I've gone back to saying writing with them, but I think that 2 years of being like that has really trained them, and they're very, very good. They really are wonderful about, Julia's got writing time. And I think the other thing that I did, I had a friend who really didn't understand, to the degree that she kind of just assumed that you could always pick up and drop things, and not being malicious, just not understanding. And so one day I said, do you want to know what it takes to publish a book? And she said, yeah. And I ran her through the idea formation, the plotting, the character development, the drafting, the going through critique partners, the revising, going through beta reading, revising, and then revising and polishing, grammar polishing, and typo polishing, and then finally getting it to an agent, and then maybe the agent has edits, and so on and so on and so on. And then she said, great, and then it gets published. And I said, no, then it goes to an editor. And then once you hit the editor, you do that all over again. And she kind of, I think, was a little stunned, and really finally started to understand that it's a much more involved process than just kind of when people sit there and think that, sits on a typewriter or sits on their computer with a quill pen or whatever, and just waits for the muse to decide that things are going to happen. So.
Well, and then even beyond that, your life as a writer is as a public figure, essentially. So you're maintaining several social media accounts, and even when you don't have a big fan base, it's still a lot of work to maintain an e-newsletter and all of your website and all the different social media accounts, and making sure that you jump on an opportunity to participate in a blog talk or to critique someone, and then add in the critique hours and the beta reading, and it is a full-time job.
Absolutely. How do you guys feel about you mentioned a couple of things. Maybe we can handle social media first. And I know some people found that to be a distraction at RWA, and some people really felt that there was a benefit there. So how do you guys, I hate using the word balance because we once did one of these where we basically said we hate the word balance. We're not going to talk about balance. But how do you balance your writing time and all the things you have to do promotionally?
For me, social media is an outlet because I am a full-time writer and a full-time mom, so the most socialization I get with other people who like talking about writing and books is through social media and the internet. And so I usually block off certain amounts of time for it, especially after I do my morning writing. I take a break, and then I get to get on Twitter and Facebook and have fun, and then I go back to writing. And then otherwise, social media is usually kind of an on-the-fly thing for me. It's at soccer games, sitting in car rider line, stuff like that. It's something that instead of just passing the time, I'm passing the time in a productive way, so to speak.
How about you, Mary Chris? Where do you strike that balance?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually kind of do something very similar. I don't set time frames, which actually is a really great idea. But I tend to look, when I wake up in the morning, kind of catch up on social media. It's a great use of my lunch break. I used to occasionally try to write or edit on my lunch break at work, and my brain can't make that switch fast enough. And I've stopped trying to make myself fit into that box. So what I kind of switched to doing was making lunch my social media time, which is perfect because I actually have a lot of verbal interaction at work, and so it's nice to just sort of sit quietly and read and respond to somebody, on social media. So that's a great time to use that to get that done. And then other than that, I agree. It's just sort of on the fly. It's if I'm waiting in line or I have 5 minutes before something starts, using it in that way. So kind of very much the same thing, but for me it was a big realization that that's an okay thing for me to be doing with my lunchtime. I don't need to beat myself up if I'm not writing or editing during that time frame. That's a great, that social media is still advancing my writing career, which I think was something that it really helped me to acknowledge, is this is something that is still part of me doing my second job, is interacting on social media. So that's how I blend it in.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that aspect of it, because it is. It's an expectation at this point. It's a necessity, because you do have to kind of, you're a writer, you're also a personality, whether you like it or not. And, you are going to interact with people, and it is important. And I think that it's important to, I can tell you right now, I'm not wild about Facebook. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I don't find it to be as, it doesn't fit the way that I want to use social media as well, but it is one of those things where I know it's important, and I know it's very important for a lot of different reasons. So I try to make the time for it, and I'm getting better with it. Google Plus is the one that I really struggle on, which is ironic that I'm admitting this on a Google Hangout, but it is tricky sometimes to balance all of those things, and I know Twitter is the first place I usually go to. I'm trying to be better about making sure that I'm putting stuff on my website and things like that. It is a little manic still, and I haven't found a good system, but one of the things that I do is I try not to respond to anything while I'm still horizontal in bed, but I am one of those people who definitely puts her glasses on, and first thing I do is look for notifications, and I usually have one from Alexis because she gets up earlier than I do, so even getting up at 6:30 in the morning. So I usually take a few minutes. I've actually started building in a half hour to my my getting ready time, getting up a half hour earlier than I need to answer tweets and send tweets and Facebook and all those things. And then when I'm lucky, actually, when I get to work, I'm able to have Twitter up and Facebook up as part of my job. So it does help every once in a while to be able to just, blast something out there. But I have a pretty hard and fast rule that now that I'm saying that, realize I break occasionally, and you'll have to slap my wrist if you see me doing it. But I try to not be active on Twitter unless I guess I'm responding to something after about 9 p.m., and you're all going to laugh at me for that, because I definitely do it. But I try not to sit there with the screen up looking to respond to stuff. I'm trying to just sit there and kind of, if people message me, respond to that. Because I do feel like there's a responsibility to talk back to people if they're talking to you. But yeah, that's writing time, and so I try to make sure that the phone I have a do not disturb function on my phone. My phone goes into that mode. I don't turn my internet off, but if I have the window closed, I won't see anything. I don't get any desktop top notifications or anything like that, so usually I can kind of shut off for a little while longer. So I find that to be very, very helpful. Because it's so tempting to just, go away from the document for a moment, answer a couple things, and then go back to the document and think, where was I? I don't remember where I was in that paragraph on bad writing days. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the right, this could be like maybe a whole nother talk, so I won't go too in depth on it, but I think part of that protecting your writing time is also using tools that are available to you. While you were talking about that and kind of how you use Twitter and catch up on things, I was thinking about the fact that for a while now, probably about a year, I've been using Hootsuite, and there's lots of other software tools like that where you can separate your Twitter feed into streams. And so that, I feel like, allows me to use the limited amount of time I have to really hone in on exactly what I want to. For example, I'll give the example. I follow a lot of food sites like Food 52 and things like that. And if I was looking at all of that really regularly, I would get totally distracted by the pretty pictures of food and not get back to what I should be doing. So it really helps me to be able to separate kind of into writing business, writers I want to interact with, people that I think people who I know are my readers, like to kind of separate those things into streams. So when I have limited time, I can quickly check in on the ones that I feel like, have the most priority. So that definitely, again, I don't want to veer down that path on this chat, but I think there are a lot of tools out there that can help you make the most of the time that you allot for social media.
Definitely. Do you have anything to add, Lexi, or do you want to? I have another question, but.
Yeah, go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I think I said what I needed to say.
How do you guys deal with guilt? How do you deal with writing protection guilt? Either saying no or not maybe being as good about it as you could be?
That is a good question. Don't know that I know the answer to that.
I beat myself up to some degree if I'm not. I used to beat myself up about not sitting down and writing, and I found that I was going through like 3 weeks of really, really, really productive for 7 days a week, and then burning out for 2 weeks. So I started setting hard and fast days to write, except the month of August was really busy, so I'm kind of breaking that. But that really helped when I knew that there were certain times that I was supposed to be doing something, and so I could do that then and then not feel guilty about taking a couple days off.
That's a really good point about the scheduling, and I think that's essentially what I do. I have a schedule, and this is when I work, and I don't feel guilty about working during the hours that I work. I feel guilty when, like right now, there's a lot going on, and so I feel like I'm constantly playing catch-up, so I'm catching an hour here, and I'm waking up an hour early to do that, and I can work all day Saturday and Sunday, and my kids only have a week and a half of summer vacation left, and we haven't done half the things that I wanted to do, and so that guilt is starting to set in that I've been stealing all these extra hours and days to catch up on all the things I said yes to, and I don't know what to do with that right now, honestly. I was emailing with a friend today, and I was like, I have mom guilt, and she was like, you need to stop.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't have a good answer for that one either. I said at the beginning of this chat that I'm not actually the greatest. Before we were on air, I said I'm actually not the best at protecting my writing time, and I'm not. You know, I know all the best practices about setting aside time to do it. I do have a set time every week that I do write for, you know, multiple hours, but it's not necessarily something that I have set aside every single day. And yeah, it's definitely an area that I'm hoping to work on. I guess the one thing I will say is when I am not writing and I do feel bad about it, trying to kind of tap into that feeling, like sort of tap into how that guilt makes you feel, you know, can sometimes help me to motivate myself and remember, like, I don't want to have that feeling again. And so if I just sit and I write and then I go do the thing that is going to be fun. It's very much the same thing that kind of got me through graduate school. It's something I tell students I work with in my other job. You know, you're going to enjoy the things that you'll be doing with friends or with family. You're going to enjoy them more if you have protected that time. I'm really, really good at giving that advice. I'm not really great at taking it.
That's a really good point that you brought up about grad school and stuff, because I do remember that same kind of weight of I'm putting all of this extra hours and extra time into this endeavor, and I'm not at the beach with my friends, and I'm not sleeping in half the day on Sunday, and that it's the same feeling. Oh my God, that's so true.
Yeah, I remember that from graduate school as well. So I think with me this week in particular, I just basically went into the month of August and said, I just know August is going to suck, and my calendar is ridiculous, and I am trying to do too many things at once, all of which are at least similarly based, so I'm doing a lot of revision as opposed to trying to revise and also write, which I have a lot of trouble going back and forth between those two things. So I kind of sent out word to the people in my life early and was like, August is going to suck. And you know what? Last weekend was bad. It was a really intense weekend, and I, like I said, I went to an RWA chapter meeting. Friday night I saw Guardians of the Galaxy, which was awesome. And then the next day I went to an RWA chapter meeting, and other than that, I really didn't move from my apartment. I ended up taking an hour to watch the Outlander episode because I thought I was going to tear my hair out. And so that was about 5 hours out of a 72-hour period when I was not sleeping and was not writing. And it was a lot, and I don't particularly enjoy that, and I don't particularly recommend that, but the reason I was able to do it is I had some friends who said, hey, you know, do you want to get together and it was just no. Like, I'm really sorry, this is not going to work this weekend. And I feel terrible about that. It sucks. I hate saying no to people. I'm a people pleaser. I love the people in my life. I want to see them, but sometimes, as much as I make them a priority, I have to make this thing a priority, and it's only for 1 month, and that was a particularly bad weekend. I don't think it's going to be quite like that again. I hope it's not going to be like that again. But at some point, I kind of was just like, you're feeling really guilty. You just got to get over yourself. And there have been several moments where I've just been like, just get over it. Just deal with it. Vent to somebody. Sorry about that, Lexi. And then deal with it. So,
Dude, Sunday night, I was under my desk. I was like, this weekend sucks!
Bad. It was really bad. But you know what? If you're in the middle of formatting, and I know, Mary Chris, you've talked about the frustrations with formatting and the frustrations with getting a book out, especially when you've said you've got a deadline, you've got a release date, the work has to get done. At some point, it just has to get done. Like, if you want a book out, you're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But no, there is guilt. There's definite guilt. And then somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody at RWA said, you gotta be a big girl now, or something like that. Anyway.
I didn't hear that one, but it's true.
Yeah. Time to be a big girl. So.
Well, and anything worth doing comes with certain sacrifices, and so sometimes you're gonna have a really bad weekend because you have to get everything done, and there's just no other choice. And you might have a bad month, but if you're scheduling and you're planning your things out, you know where the end is going to be, and you make up for it from there and you move on. It is what it is.
Yeah. And I think you set some kind of reward for yourself. I mean, I think, we all kind of talked about feeling the same pressure in grad school, but the difference is the semester ends, and you tend to be like, this ended, and it it doesn't necessarily end in the same way with writing, but I think you have to create those endings for yourself. You have to say, when I get this turned in, I am going to take 2 days and binge on that TV show I've been missing, or I'm going to go to a concert, or I'm going to sleep. I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock and, sleep, or, whatever that thing is. I think you have to set up that same reward. But that being said, there is a piece of this that's just really just kind of something that's hard to put into words. And, again, when we were talking about the grad school thing and I was thinking that through, every semester was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Literally every semester I said I was going to quit because I was working full-time and in graduate school, and it was a lot. And then I didn't quit because obviously I wanted the degree. But it's okay, kind of to have those moments that you guys are talking about where you're under your desk and you're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like, I think the important thing is to reach out to somebody who will be like, yes, you can, and you will get back up in your chair and you'll finish this. But it's okay. I mean, I think my husband was as relieved as I was when I graduated because he knew he wasn't going to have to tell me for the 1,000th time that I wanted my degree and that I should quit. And I feel very much the same way with writing. And that's why it's important to have that inner circle of writing friends that you can say, I feel like I'm going to quit. I feel like I just want to walk away from all of this, because you are going to have those moments.
Burn the manuscript down.
Yeah.
And then you have somebody who's like, no. Yes. Somebody's going to tell you you can actually do this, you've got this, and stop being a drama queen. Or they're going to sit there and be like, I know, I'll be there right with you with the lighter fluid and the match. And just like, why don't we just throw our laptops out the window? Both are strangely comforting.
They are! They so are! Sorry, I lost a little bit there.
No, you're not crazy if you feel this way. Trust me, you're really not. And writer friends are great. Writer friends get it when I think I saw Christina Dodd mention something on Facebook about how she had been talking to a friend, and she said, I'm writing the most boring book in the world. And the friend said, that's not possible because I'm writing the most boring book in the world right now.
Yes.
It's just nice having somebody in there with you.
Yes, because we really do. We share the same doubts and fears and guilt. And so it's nice sometimes to have that little reminder as you're holding the matches to the pages and someone comes up and says, no, I need the matches first. Or, whatever it is, because we're in this together. And
I just want to say we don't endorse arson, so please don't. We are not your defense.
And I don't even ever have paper manuscripts, so I couldn't ever.
I do.
And I don't want to break my computer, so I'm not going to throw it anywhere.
He's the calm one out of us.
Yeah, we're writers. We often use dramatic imagery to explain our emotions. So let's just make that clear.
That was imagery? Oh. So we're getting to about the 45-minute mark. So I know, unless there's anything that anybody wants to add about this particular topic, we thought we might do something new this week. Anything? No?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, it's the thing that you're all looking at me with blank stares because you're like, what's she talking about? We were thinking about recommending a book because, as we say, you should be reading if you're a writer. And we hope that you're reading good books. So we have some good books that we'd like to recommend. So who wants to start?
I can start. You want me to start?
Sure.
Go for it.
As a treat for RWA, I allowed myself to read a non-writer friend book for the plane flight. And so I read Love in English by Karina Hale. I don't know what's her last name. J-L-O-E. It's called Love in English. It's about a young woman who goes to Spain to help teach English to businessmen and falls in love. And it's a little bit of a different kind of romance, but I absolutely loved it. It was very engaging and lots of imagery of Spain and a sexy Spanish star in it. And so if you're looking for a summer read, I highly recommend it. Very
nice. Is it a YA or a new an NA, or is it a straight up romance?
I would say straight up contemporary romance. She's 22 or 23, something like that. She's at the end of college, so technically it's NA, I guess. But for me, it was more of a contemporary.
Got it. How about you, Mary Chris? Read anything good recently?
Yes, well, I'm in the middle of a couple books right now because I'm on vacation, and so that's super exciting. But the book I finished most recently was actually a young adult book, which is not a genre that I read in a lot, other than our friend Tracy Puckett. So again, there's books of friends. But I read a book that from a woman that I met at a conference locally last year, actually in October. It took me that long to get around to it, but it was called Jaded. And it is part of a series. I think her series is called the Nirvana series, but Jaded is the first book that's out. And it was pretty fascinating. It was very different. I had met the author, so I read the book, but it was not something I would usually pick up. It was YA dystopian, and it was individuals living in a society where a lot was governed by eye color. And I actually did a review on my blog, so I'm not going to give a ton of information about it, or not a review. I gave kind of a synopsis on my blog a couple weeks ago, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It reminded me so much of kind of being younger and reading books. I was reading it in the summer, and so it just kind of reminded me of when I used to curl up with Babysitter's Club or something like that. Not that it was that kind of book, but I loved the age of the characters. There was a very sweet relationship between between the main character and her best friend. And it's part of a trilogy, and so there's a cliffhanger at the end, and I really need her to finish the next book and get it out so I can find out what happens. There's a really, really unique premise with sort of eye color, so a little bit of sci-fi to it, but very grounded in reality also. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Very nice. So I am writing historical romance, and as a rule, I don't read in the genre that I'm writing, but that kind of limits me when I'm also writing contemporary romance. So there was one book that I was really, really excited about picking up at RWA, and that was Courtney Milan's The Countess Conspiracy, which has her covers are always fantastic. So I met Courtney and got it signed and had a nice conversation with her, and have read one other thing by her before. Loved her books. This blew it out of the water for me. I just absolutely adored this book, and one of the reasons I loved it was you got kind of an unusual look at Victorian historical romances. The heroine is a very analytical person. She's actually the mastermind, the brain behind early inheritance genetics. So she is one of the people who's she basically has her best friend, a man who is the hero, front for her as this brilliant scientist, and he decides he wants out, and this is not giving anything away, that he wants to no longer be the front for her brilliant research. And so it's kind of about their relationship, and you know straight off that he is in love with her, and he just adores her, but there are reasons that that can't happen, and emotional reasons that can't happen, and then the whole stigma around being a woman in science and talking about sex traits and Darwinism and things that were completely taboo at the time. And I ended up actually fangirling on this book so hard that Leah Riley messaged me, and we had a long DM Twitter conversation about how embarrassing we are about Courtney Milan. But it was really, really a wonderful book and so moving, to the point where I thought I was going to cry at some point. I managed to hold myself together. I really don't cry in books very often, but I just cannot recommend it highly enough, especially if you're looking for something a little bit more unusual in the historical romance genre. So that's Courtney Milan's The Countess Conspiracy. So, yay! All right, so those are book recommendations.
Can I go back? So I'm a bad book recommender because I didn't talk about who wrote my book. It was Jaded. It was Christy Gillespie is the author, and I don't have because I'm not at home, and it's actually on my iPad anyway. But anyway, Christy Gillespie, Jaded in the Nirvana series. Thanks.
So now we're going to talk about our books because we're going to promo ourselves and then wrap this thing up. So Alexis, Ann, you want to start us off? What have you got going on?
Yesterday, I released the T5, which is the last volume in my T serial. Yay! Well done! Yay! So all 5 volumes of T's are available now, and the first one is free if you want to try it out, and Storm Inside is still free. So yeah, these are my books, and I'll let Julia talk about our other Good news.
Cool. Mary Chris, what about you?
I released at the end of June How to Be Alive, which is my second novel. So that is available wherever you like to purchase books online. So that's out there. And then I also just, in the most recent issue of the Right Life magazine, I have a great article about reading Jane Austen for the first time, so a little bit of a confession about that and my reaction to it. That can be found if you go to therightlifestyle.com. They have issues of all the magazines there. You can either pick it up for a very small price on your iPad or iPhone, I think, or it's available free in PDF form. So that's kind of what I'm excited about this month.
Wonderful. So what Alexis alluded to is that she and I have an anthology coming out, and it has a release date, which is awesome because it has seemed like this nebulous thing for months that we've kind of been hinting at. We are releasing on September 9th, 1 Week in Wyoming, which is an anthology of 4 interlocking stories. So we have a prologue, we have an epilogue that kind of ties everything together, and these stories happen simultaneously over 1 week at a ski resort in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, at the start of the ski season. So they are sexy contemporary romances. Mine is called Seduction in the Snow, and Alexis is called Undressing Kara. Are you saying Kara or Kara?
Kara.
Kara. Okay, I should have asked this beforehand. But we actually have a pre-order on iBooks. iBooks has been very good to us, and we're very happy to have that up and running right now. And then on September 9th, it will be available wherever you like. And I believe we're also doing paperback books. So if you have a need to have an anthology of snowed-in, sort of snowy, wintry, holiday-y sort of books, we will have that available for you. So I'm very excited. This is my first release, so I'm very, very excited. Yeah, so hopefully, and blog hop stuff is going on, and things on websites, and I have a story that just came out, and Alexis has one coming out. When is it?
Thursday.
Thursday, right. So if you want free fiction, that's available too. Just add it to your list.
It's called The Undressing. First Undressing?
Undressed. We called it something. Anyway.
That's it.
Anyway, they're a little bit spicier, maybe, than the last one because people's clothes come off. So that right there.
The clothes fell off.
It was just strange how that happened. All right, so we think, be back in September if you want us back, and yeah, so we'll have another topic then. We don't know what that will be, but we will let you know. So keep an eye out, and we're going to say goodbye for the night.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.